Hey, Mark.
Hey, Kevin.
Well, it's another episode of Help Is Not on the Way.
You almost said, "Are we recording?" Didn't you? I almost did. I thought that's what you were going to say.
thought that?
Maybe that's what I thought instead of what you were going to say.
Right.
Because this is Help Is Not on the Way, our other podcast.
Our other podcast. The one that people actually like.
The one that people listen to. The other one that's not just pure self-indulgence.
Yes, exactly. And it's been a while, but I think we've got some good stories. So I know you're going to go first, but I'm going to say what I'm doing,
Yeah,
which
let's
is
hear it.
a balloon guy.
Yeah, we were talking
failed
about
balloon guy.
We're talking about we need to have a whole category of balloon guys or
Yes.
failed balloon endeavors.
Mm-hmm. I think that you could have a whole subgenre.
It's a thing, people. If you're not aware of it, it is a thing.
And what do you have?
Well, so I was inspired this week to come up with something because of a certain gentleman that we mention a lot on our other podcast has decided to create his own town. Mm-hmm. It seems like a perfect utopia, perfect storm in the sense of like, storms being like pleasant and nice and never like sort of like, like completely chaotic and subject to the whims of the wrath of their god. And in this case, the god is the creator of the town, I think, at least in his own mind.
And what's cool, about this kind of thing is, like Elon Musk, they're libertarians.
True.
Right? And of course, libertarianism, the beauty of it, Mark, if you're not familiar with this ism, is that, everything just takes care of itself. Right? So it's all good. You don't need like the heavy hand of government.
Yeah, to come and tell you how to live your life and all that stuff. And I think that that's really what this falls into the what could possibly go wrong. In fact, actually, maybe that's the next name of our next podcast. What could possibly go wrong? This is called the Freetown Project. Now, you'd heard of this, but I hadn't until relatively recently.
Yeah.
Stumbled across it. Pretty exciting.
I stumbled, because I was going to join.
Yeah, of course.
Right, yeah.
Well, you live it in your own home.
That's true.
You don't do the dishes because they're going to eventually they're going to work themselves out. They'll return to the earth.
Exactly. And, that's the way our household works because if you want something, you just have to do it.
Yeah, you just have to do it. You have to do my dishes. I had a roommate once who wouldn't do his dishes.
He was a libertarian.
Well, and he had a thing where he was like, well, how about if like I just do your dishes and then I make dinner when I want to make dinner and then you do my dishes when you want to make dinner. And I couldn't quite, and I really like the guy. He's a good guy, great friend. But I could not get it through his head that didn't really, because I don't want to scrape the beans off of out of his bowl or dish or whatever, so I can make dinner. I want to start dinner with something of a clean slate, and at the worst be it my own mess that I'm cleaning up, not someone else's, so I can make dinner. But to his mind, it made perfect sense. I'll just do your dish, and I kept thinking like, I don't leave the mess you do. I at least put water in my dish.
I was just gonna say, let me guess, his dishes were disgusting.
He didn't
right?
like if he cooked something, he wouldn't fill it, like, not that you should waste the water, fill it with water.
Right. So it was like super hard baked on whatever.
Yeah.
And so you were supposed to scrub it with like a scouring pad.
I had to scrub it with a scouring pad, then throw it away, then go buy a new pot and come back and cook my dinner. That was the.
How about you clean yours? I'll clean mine.
It was, he's a libertarian. I don't know if he knows it or not, but he's a libertarian. It'll work itself out.
Next time he'll have a bear cleaning his dishes. So
he will, lapping his dishes when he comes home. This is called the Freetown Project, somewhat surprisingly, it actually lasted for years, or still kind of is. I think technically or whatever, according to somebody's definition, it's still going. Exactly. So. In around 2004, this group of libertarians, they're out there in the world, and they're sort of like AOLing each other back then and trying to figure out how to it's the early days of outrage on the internet, right? Of how things are being handled. And they decide to take over. So what ultimately this is about is this group decides to take over a small town in New Hampshire to create a free state utopia. The intent's to take over a town and turn it into a perfectly logical and perfectly market-based community, which is, of course, Ayn Rand's like concept when she created Galt's Gulch in
Atlas Shrugged.
Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah.
Why can't I think of the name of that book? In Atlas Shrugged. Now, of course, if you've ever read Atlas Shrugged and you're not crazy, you know that this is absolutely not going to happen. This isn't going to work. It's kind of like Animal Farm. You read Animal Farm and you know halfway through the book, like, this isn't going to work. Like, someone's eventually going to, like, start taking over. Like, things aren't going to work the way you think it's going to.
The beauty of libertarianism is that it's really the, like, kind of the wet dream of 20-something single males.
Totally. Yeah. It's the...
And Rand Paul.
Right? Exactly. So, and I think part of what that is many of these people cannot conceptualize, and I don't mean to say everybody who's libertarian is like a complete lunatic, but like a lot of people can't quite grasp the fact that this isn't going to, other people aren't going to be like you in this. It's like showing up at the airport and going like, why do you need to search my bag? I'm not carrying a gun.
Right.
Yeah, but like the guy behind you might be.
Sure. Yeah.
And we don't know.
I'm a good neighbor.
Just because you're a good neighbor doesn't mean everyone's going to be, just because you know. So this is really kind of the takeaway from all of this, is the fact that, like, there's actually a great quote in the end I'll bring up. Anyway, the intent is to take over a town and turn it into this sort of market-based, perfect community. So I'll outline the sort of general concept of libertarianism for anyone who doesn't know about it. A libertarian is, in simple terms, is averse to any government interference in their lives, especially taxes. They believe that if left alone, free individuals would thrive and self-regulate, and that logic, reason, and efficiency would prevail and guide them. So sort of like things will work themselves out, as you put, right? So it starts when this group of libertarians make this call out to other like-minded believers via their online forums to move to this town in New Hampshire, this rural town called Grafton. They chose Grafton because it was in the live free or die state, which already aligned in many ways with their belief structure, with the lack of both sales and income tax, and boasting the highest per capita machine gun ownership of all the states. As an aside, for anyone who's out there who knows this is the state that also produced G.G. Allin, the famous shock punk rock musician who was very much a libertarian, I would suggest. He definitely let it all sort itself out. Grafton, it fits the bill because they looked around and they figured it was going to be New Hampshire, but they looked around. And it fits the bill because it was small, land was cheap, there's no zoning in place, so they could fashion whatever living arrangements they needed to afford to move in. It also had a history of avoiding taxes, apparently way back in 1777, I should say. It was the first instance where Grafton was like, we're not paying your taxes. And so people were already sort of aligned with that concept from way back in time. The invaders, who were soon living in campsites, shipping containers, yurts, and mobile homes, were mostly white males, eventually numbered in the hundreds, as far as anyone was counting. Some were wealthy and could afford the move. Others pretty much drifters, sort of taking advantage of the circumstances.
Ooh. Yeah, that's kind of the thing we were just talking about, right? I mean, that not everybody subscribes to your way of thinking.
But they are pretty happy with your way of living.
Exactly.
It reminds me of Wild Wild Country, the Netflix documentary about the Rajneeshi, and all of these, like, all people who just sort of like, they cast out to a huge homeless population to come in, and they were like, come on in, it's just what you want, and also it'll like stack our numbers for voting purposes. And ultimately they were like, oh wait, we did not intend for
this is not what we
wanted. There are mentally ill people, there are people who could care less about our cause.
Surprise.
Right. So a lot of people who didn't care about the cause showed up, but sort of found themselves attracted for some reason to the concept. But pretty few of them had 9-to-5 jobs, you can imagine, because who can just up and move to a town in the middle of nowhere?
Right.
So the move happened also without letting the good people of Grafton know about the plan.
I'm sure they were very on board with.
Yeah, there were about 800 voter-registered citizens, and most of the town woke up one day pretty much to realize that they were being invaded by outsiders, which unbeknownst to libertarians would actually be to them something worse than the concept of paying taxes. Like, people underestimate the amount, the protectionism of people, especially in a small community or really anywhere, about how outsiders is a thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, imagine if someone comes to your neighborhood and is like, yeah, we're tearing down all the houses but yours and putting up high rises. You're like, say what?
For my first thing, and it sucks, it's like sort of a sucky thing in a way, is we all first thing look at the license plate. Where are you from?
Right.
You know, especially in a place that sort of has sort of transient people. Where are you moving from? What's your? I like to see. I actually, whenever I drive past a vehicle that's been pulled over, I check the license plate, and when it's out of state, I'm kind of like, yeah.
I mean, Mark, I've never done that here in Whitefish.
It's kind of a sucky thing to do.
During COVID, I think that's all I did is drive around town looking at license plates.
I got pulled over in Utah once. The speed limit changed from like 45 to a 25 in and apparently the cops knew, because anyone that doesn't know it misses this sign. And I did. I missed the sign. I was talking to my kids and I missed the sign. I got pulled over. I got a ticket. Only ticket I've gotten in my life. And I can guarantee you I was on the side of the road with California license plates, and there were people who were looking at me going like, yeah, stick it to him. Get him.
California.
Get him.
Go back home.
Go get him. Yeah, police presence. That's right. And thinking that they'd actually targeted me. Maybe they did. Good for them. Whatever. Here I am today. I'm fine. So the move happened, as I mentioned, without local people knowing, and they were suddenly invaded. They held a town meeting, and it was pretty clear that people were not happy to be part of this experiment. Things get worse when they realize exactly what, quote, freedom meant to some of the transplants. Don't forget, this isn't some like group of like-minded people who have all been vetted.
No, it's anybody.
Yeah, this is a group of like-minded people, some of which are coming here even from the beginning because they kind of want a certain type of freedom that maybe not everybody agrees with. One newbie who was an original mastermind of the scheme, his name's Larry Pendarvis. He had posted online his intentions to create a space honoring freedom to traffic organs, hold duels, and the God-given right to hold bum fights. Like, I think they mean like homeless people brawls and like bet on them.
Like a cockfight, but with homeless people instead, or a dog fight.
He also felt, quote, victimless crimes should not be prosecuted, including consensual cannibalism.
Okay. Well, I mean, it does seem like a bum fight might have victims.
But if you're on board for it, I mean,
but that's kind of like Squid Games, right? I mean, nobody wants to get shot because they failed at the game. They did it because they're destitute and have no other choice. Not
as far as Larry Pendarvis is concerned.
Exactly.
Larry Pendarvis may have written Squid Games.
Right.
Written, directed, and acted in Squid Games. Pendarvis was eventually produced. He was art director.
Right.
Pendarvis was eventually moved away to a more suitable and acceptable state.
He went to a gated community somewhere.
He moved to Texas.
Oh, Texas, right.
So a gated community in the shape of Texas.
Right.
But many of his compatriots remained. One arriving on one of the people who sort of moved here in this exodus was arrived on a mission from God.
Oh, Jake or Elwood?
It was Jake and Elwood. Yeah, it was two of them, Jake and Elwood. Yeah, they set up the local church,
on a mission
the local
from God.
blues church.
Right.
Others were survivalists. There was an anti-circumcision activist.
Oh, yeah.
As the years drifted by, and believe me, this did go on for years, like as this sort of transpired. And many of the locals realized they actually kind of aligned politically and idealistically with the invaders. And also, apparently, one of the reasons they chose this town is because there wasn't a lot of civic involvement. Like, people weren't really like...
So they could kind of take over.
Yeah, they were like, people weren't really paying attention. They weren't involved. And, I don't think they got involved after the fact too much, although outrage at the town hall meeting. So they when they realized when some people realized they had some idealistic and political alignments with the invaders, the invaders did make inroads into the government. So first, with these inroads, they tried to withdraw from the school district, refused to continue to pay for road repairs, and attempted to declare Grafton a United Nations free zone.
Because the United Nations had a heavy presence in the town beforehand, right?
Yeah. They were thinking about building a 26-story, right. United Nations hub there. Right, like they really paying attention to Grafton. These all failed, but they were able to convince enough people in the town to cut town services back drastically. These included policing, road services, fire service, and the public library. Some town buildings couldn't even afford to pay their heating bills. The town budget was cut by 30% while population swelled, but tax revenue dropped. How's that usually work?
I mean, I know you can, like, as the conservative I am, Mark, you can cut taxes and not cut spending, and things just magically work out.
They work out.
Yes.
Work themselves out, like the dishes in the sink.
Right.
Yeah, someone's going to do them after you. Let the next generation do
like
your
I
dishes.
said, magical thinking of 20-somethings,
Yeah, let
right?
the next generation clean up your sewage spills.
I don't really care about my kids.
No, don't either. Yeah, right. In fact, I want to punish them for what they've done to me.
Exactly.
The effects are not what most of the supporters expected. Because again, like they there's this idea that what you think is going to work out, and the way you and I think if you in not maybe Larry's like idea of freedom, but yeah, if you took a single person's really thought out idea of something and everyone adhered to that specifically, you might get away with it. Like there are people who are conservatives who are strong environmentalists. Okay, you know what I mean? We can figure, you know what I mean? But the problem is that not everybody agrees with or will do exactly what you do.
Right.
In other words, I don't have to check your bag when you get on the airplane, but that doesn't mean that you can trust everybody else getting on the airplane.
I mean, like, technically, a libertarian would be fine with abortion, drug use, transgender, everything. LGBTQ plus, right? Except that we know that nobody is truly 100% that libertarian.
No.
I've never met them.
It's going to go off the and even if you are, you have to put restrictions on things.
I don't like when my neighbor burns tires.
Right.
But he believes it's his right.
Yeah, because there's a wind that always blows it straight into my house.
Yeah.
Am I just going to suffer this because because I'm a libertarian and my neighbor has the right to do it? Eventually, you're going to get fed up with the fact your neighbor's burning tires and your kid's coughing up tire gunk.
Right.
So while some of the town costs did go down, many, such as legal fees for fighting off Freetowners' constant lawsuits, went up because it turns out these Free State Libertarians are incredibly litigious people.
That's kind of surprising, Mark.
They're constantly suing the town.
Right. That seems kind of antithetical to libertarianism.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't it? So a robust private sector, which is another very Ayn Randian concept, which will take over, the railroads all of this will take over, and they will save, as long as
they'll never derail and explode and burn vinyl chloride in your neighborhood.
They'll never do that.
No.
And if they do, they'll have the integrity to do the right thing. No, they won't.
Nope.
They will not.
And a lynch mob would make them do the right thing, but that's where things devolve
in Galt's Gulch.
Right?
In Galt's Gulch, if there is a derailment of a train, they will walk away and be like, "Sorry, we're moving out of Galt's Gulch because we can afford it, and you can."
That's right. The company's bankrupt. I'm not.
In fact,
the company is.
In fact, we never ran this stuff through Galt's Gulch because guess what? We were rich, and we would never do that through our neighborhood. We only do it through your neighborhood, where we can turn our backs and walk away when the time, if ever there's a spill.
Probably a neighborhood full of poor people.
Probably, unfortunately, probably. So, which is obviously a part of this too, is the fact that the good people of Grafton are probably not, in the top 100, in the top 1%. They're not the earners.
No.
And yet here they are, just like a lot of people going like, well, I want to be like this. It's like, well, taxes aren't your problem.
Right.
The fact that that the rich guy who lives, in wherever is not paying his taxes because he doesn't have to, and he's found ways out of it, and you're supporting the laws that support that.
He's convinced you to get on board with him not paying his fair share, right?
Because you shouldn't have to pay taxes. You shouldn't have to pay your, 15%, so he doesn't have to pay his 35%, but he is fine. no matter what he pays, you know? So here we go. But we digress, Kevin.
Yes.
We digress. The robust private sector to take place of government and taxes fails to materialize. The town becomes a haven for sex offenders, and crime goes up, including its first ever double murder.
I don't want to laugh about it becomes a haven for sex offenders. Not that I think having a town full of sex offenders is funny, just that it's ironic.
It is ironic, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It's really ironic. So crime goes up. There's a double murder. There's never been a murder in the town. Meanwhile, the one police chief and his deputy can't get around because there's no money to fix their only police car. So they can't even get to the scene of whatever's going on. Now, so seeing as how there are few rules governing the town and none restricting land use, people begin throwing garbage out. However, out onto their property, I should say. And wherever they feel like it, really. However, this causes a problem because it attracts bears. Additionally, people have no restrictions, so some people who are a little bit more enlightened like to feed the bears. Like actively feed the bears because it's nice to watch bears eat, apparently.
I'm fond of saying don't feed the pigeons, but in this instance, you would just change the saying to "don't feed the bears."
Well, exactly, and you have to ask yourself this question again as a libertarian. You're a libertarian, and I'm going to put this to you, Kevin. Be a libertarian in this moment. You don't want bears on your property or around, and you don't want them to get all crazy and aggressive because there's food everywhere. But I'm your neighbor and I'm feeding the bears. And you want to be able to, and the other neighbor wants to be able to throw garbage out onto their property that's open, and bears attracts bears. So what do you, as a libertarian who doesn't want bears, do?
Well, there's a couple of options, Mark. Mm-hmm. So one, you just build like a wall around your place,
Walls.
Right? And then you walk around with guns at all times, and you get like an armored vehicle so the bear could never get you. Mm-hmm. Or two, you get the rest of the townspeople to come and make those people pay for what they did. Punishment, Mark.
Punishment
yes.
Pay, not because you can't, no taxes.
Right. I'm not saying monetary. I'm saying physical, like broken fingers, kneecaps, maybe, broken windows, burn their house down,
so you go
drive them out of town.
Mafia on them.
Yeah, exactly.
You go Tony Soprano.
Those are your two options in a pure libertarian society.
I think I go with number one.
Yeah.
It's a little.
I don't know, but
like,
who wants to have to drive around in an armored vehicle with a wall around your place? Like, I think I'd go with the breaking some kneecaps.
Kevin, I think we've already realized that the concept of freedom in most Americans' mind is a wall around everything, and you can't get out, and nobody can get in.
So you know what the option would have been? I didn't think of this. They could have just been richer, and they could have had a much bigger piece of property. Then it wouldn't matter that they had to
like 400 miles.
Yes,
you're 400 miles away from the people.
Right.
The bears aren't going to bother you.
The bears don't bother you. Yeah,
you're not living right in your border. You're right in the middle of your 400 mile. You maybe 200 miles from your border. You got a 200 mile like.
These
buffer.
are just unsuccessful libertarians that just weren't wealthy enough.
Those are the worst kind of libertarians.
They are.
I mean, the ones who complain constantly and don't have enough money to buy themselves out of their problem.
Right.
So, some people do enjoy watching the bears eat, so they feed the bears. This attracts black bears, who soon the word gets out with the black bear community, who are also, by the way, libertarians.
They're a bunch of freeloaders, too.
And they're freeloaders.
Yeah.
They're like a bunch of hippie freeloading libertarians is what they are.
It's the worst combination.
They do not care about they don't pay taxes.
Nope.
They don't care about rules.
They poop wherever they want.
Wherever they want to. Completely whatever they want to do. They will dig through your garbage. They'll walk through your land. No, they don't care about your land. No. There's no land.
As far as they're concerned. So, you know what? Maybe they're less libertarian and more because they don't believe in private property.
This is like the battle of the libertarians more than we realized when we started this thing. This is actually, it's not a free town project.
Maybe they're communists or something, those bears.
I mean, they're practically communists.
Practically.
They're like one step beyond libertarian. They don't pay taxes.
It's a circle, and you go past libertarian, you get straight over to some other ism.
I don't even know what to do here, Kevin. My mind is blown.
It's just going around in a circle.
I forgot where I am because the Bears are now the Libertarians, and the Libertarians are actually like conservative compared to the Bears.
Oh yeah,
I mean they're basically like Democrats.
Well, you know what could happen is, and I've had this mind destroying conversation before. All the Libertarians could get together and form a group of people who will pool their money together to get like bear security. It's not a government, Mark. It's a group of people who get together and they voluntarily pay some of their income.
Right. Weird. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
to this like group, this like overarching group, which will then enforce some rules.
Because you can't each individually do it.
No. Right.
You kind of have to sort of like have a commonality to it. Right.
Right. I don't know. I mean, you might almost call it like a municipality and a government. No.
I don't want to use those words. Right. Those words trigger me, Kevin.
We'll come up with like the.
I'm feeling triggered, Kevin,
I don't know,
by the word. Your choice of words.
We'll come up with the like, the ruling committee and the organization, or the locality and the.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll
have
do
to
this
work
off
on
microphone, but maybe we'll come back to this.
We'll have to work on that.
We'll go back to the audience on this one. So this attracts black bears, and soon the word gets out to the black bear community, and with no town officials in place to help. The police. The only people that can help are the police, and they don't even have a car.
They're having trouble chasing all the bears on foot.
That's right. They're having trouble. The two of them.
Right.
And there's no ordinances at all restricting people's behavior. The bears just show up. They populate. They grow in population, and they show up, and they're doing great. The black bears, which are traditionally, we have them around here. We see them all. They really don't want to. They'll climb a tree. They'll get into some garbage when they get a chance, but really they don't really want to see us. They're not really excited about humans, and they're not aggressive to humans, obviously, unless in certain circumstances. Their easygoing sort of like ways are proven by the once a year statistic, where like once a year attack statistic. They like once a year someone's attacked by a bear.
They're kind of like Yogi,
or a black bear, I should say. Yeah. They don't want to have anything to do with us.
Yogi and Boo Boo.
Yogi and Boo Boo. Yeah, exactly. They just want your picnic basket.
Right, a picnic basket.
So to get a hold of your picnic garbage plot on your land, or the Grafton Bears also start to become more bold. Now people are starting to try to figure out why the black bears in Grafton are so bold. They're not like these like laid back bears that you see. They're really aggressive, and they're trying to think of like, oh, well, maybe they're eating the pet waste and it's putting weird chemicals in their bodies and they're acting crazy. They're going cocaine bear here. Right.
I mean, they've been given all this stuff. It's like trying to take away a gallon of ice cream from a birthday party. Yeah. I mean, they're going to go.
And they're used to it. Like, you're trying to say, like, hey, you're going to cut off my food source because you want to, like, throw firecrackers at me or something like that. Like, I'm mad now. This isn't funny.
No.
I thought I was going to come here to eat. I got to feed my family. This is my plan for the day, to feed my kids. So they start hanging out in broad daylight. They're rummaging through the trash and picking off chickens and sheep. They're just doing whatever they want.
Yeah.
Guess what?
Why not?
Pretty libertarian of them. One even runs off with two kittens that a woman was playing with on her lawn. Imagine that, you're playing with like your little
bear runs by and snatches up. Bear
runs in and just grabs. I mean, it's pretty sad for the kittens. I don't want to sound like I'm heartless, but
I mean, if let's be honest, if we just let all the pets go and we all died, they'd all get eaten by bears.
It's true. Yeah. And a lot of cats turn out to be lame.
Oh, that's for sure.
I'm not a cat guy, no matter what you say, but the fact of the matter is, you're never going to pin me and say, like, but the truth is cats can be pretty nice.
They like to, like, lull you in and then, like, scratch your face off.
They do something lame.
Yeah. I know.
There's, like, out of the blue.
Yeah.
But the good cats are good. There are good cats out there. I'm not going to say they're not. Just like there are good dogs out there.
Sure.
But a lot of cats are. I'm just going to put it in my head that these are going to grow up to be lame cats.
Right.
And that's just the way it was,
Well, they were raised by lame people, so
that's how I'm going to sleep tonight. Yeah. with this kitten death on my mind. Another bear they start going into people's homes, into houses because
they're smart.
Yeah, because that's where the food. We're used to the food, and nobody hassles us. So
they stop giving it to us. So I'm going to get it.
They go in to get the food.
Yeah.
So people begin shooting the bears. They begin trying to booby trap their property to deter the bears, like try to deter them. To try to hurt them. So they go like, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be in this guy's. I don't want to be in this guy's land. I want to be in that guy's land.
They obviously don't know a lot about bears. You can shoot a bear's babies and then transport it 100 miles away, and it will come back.
It'll find its way back to you.
Get your garbage can again.
So, while some people, as I mentioned, sort of throw firecrackers at them to try to make loud noises and scare them away, while others still continue to feed them. Because there's no rules. You can do what you want. If you're the kind of person who's like, I love bears, they're so cute and fuzzy, and I want to walk around my property. One woman admitted that she would provide feasts of grain along with sugar donuts for the bears.
I'm thinking they came for the sugar donuts.
I'm thinking they came for the grain and they stayed for the donuts. As one woman put it, which actually happens to be the wife of this uber libertarian who eventually who actually welcomed these people to the state in advance, was in government and all this stuff like that. And I think he even kind of went whoa, this isn't what I expected. I expected some utopia where everyone was cool. His wife says, some people just don't get the responsibility side of libertarianism.
Oh, imagine that, Mark.
You mean the side that governs logic and how to treat one another, etc.? I read a piece where someone mentioned the fact that a libertarian is the kind of person who they're lovely, nothing wrong with the people as on a day-to-day basis. They'll help their neighbor, but they'll also show up at the town hall and vote down and yell down the thing that their neighbor needs to help them.
Right.
To support that. My neighbor needs a land easement. No, we don't do that here. It's but I'll show up at your doorstep and help you shovel.
Right.
I'll let you do this. I'll do that. But when it comes to anything that would raise their taxes, whatever, no chance.
I remember back in Denver, a guy, he was kind of this way, and he was complaining about the police ticketing speeders on his street. And he said it was just a money grab. And I said, perhaps it's because people are speeding and the neighbors don't like it. And he's like, yeah, right.
Right.
The reason we have laws is to stop people from doing things they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
If the people didn't speed, the city would not make money from speeders.
That's right.
It's pretty simple.
It's true.
But whatever.
So apparently libertarians, this woman's comment makes me think, apparently libertarians realized that they had, the libertarians realized, I don't think they did realize it, but you'd think they'd eventually realize that there are, that there are different ideas in regards to what it is to be a libertarian and to, quote, live free.
Oh, sure.
I mean, there's a person who thinks that live free means you can
eat other people. Yeah.
That as long as they're okay with it, hey, you're going to die, I'll eat you. I don't care if you don't care, fine. But then there are other people who are like, well, that's something you can't do. Morally, it's wrong, but then moral ambiguity comes into this because, well, I can dump toxic waste on my land. It's my land.
I mean, I know your land is attached to my land, but that's not really my problem.
I'm not dumping toxic waste on your land, though.
Right, no.
I'm dumping it on my land.
I mean, I don't know what happens when it goes underground and into the groundwater.
Hey, I'm not a scientist. Right. I'm not a groundwater scientist. Okay,
not my problem.
All I know is that and you're not going, and it's none of your business because it's my land. So, a real estate development called Grafton's. So the things start to unravel. A real estate development called Grafton's Gulch, obviously.
Ayn Rand.
Based on Galt's Gulch, goes bankrupt. The guy acting on the word from God, who moved there with the word from God, he fails in his attempt to get tax-free status for his church that he bought, and then he went broke, sold all his possessions to start up a church there, and and create this like religious utopia based on whatever religion he was sort of like. And I don't think it was like even one of the main religions. He loses, he doesn't get his tax-free status. He loses his influence in the town. Eventually he dies in a fire like that winter. Seems like he was kind of getting a little loopy.
Well, he probably didn't install smoke detectors or sprinklers because he doesn't have to, because damn it, this is a libertarian society where I get to live free.
And maybe he was like,
or die.
He was burning the mound of tires next to his house, and it caught it. Well, right. After he went to bed, I'm going to start the mound of tires on fire. The breeze doesn't matter.
Which would be more ironic as if his neighbor started the tires on fire and he died in a fire.
Yeah, if embers floated over and landed, and then it started in a fire, and that would not be the neighbor's responsibility.
I did not burn the tires on your property.
I did not burn the tires on your property. It's not my responsibility. Yeah. Your house started on fire because your house is clearly not built.
You should have had a metal roof.
Yep.
And metal siding. Yep. And a sprinkler.
Yeah,
and a smoke detector,
and you should sleep in a fireproof jammies, like I do.
Probably made with asbestos because that's very fireproof.
Totally fireproof,
and you can have it there because it's a libertarian society.
There's no rules,
right?
So, the survivalist commune walls itself off and turns into something like a prison. One of the state officials, the guy I mentioned, who's a libertarian who welcomed the movement, was soon turned on by his own people when, among other examples, he supported a measure to restrict bonfires during high wildfire risk days. Soon, another. Now, they keep in mind this went on for this is still kind of going from 2004. I mean, I think it went on for like a good 10 years or so, give or take a little bit, that it actually sort of they tried to get a foothold. And, but still, New Hampshire sort of welcomes this as a concept anyway. Another more ambitious, quote, free state project, which is what this is now sort of turned into, calling for libertarians to move to all of New Hampshire, not just Grafton, begins to gain ground, and Grafton's attempts to get help from the Fish and Game Department with their black bear population, which is now doubled from 93 to 2012, are completely rebuffed. So things are starting to unravel. The lack of help for the black bear population and the aggressive bears, the argument is, well, it's illegal to kill bears, so we don't know what you want to do about it. Fish and Game, which is the government agency that controls, of course, culling populations and helping with this sort of thing, they're grossly underfunded because the state itself is the live free state and does not have income tax, does not have sales tax, does not give much support to these agencies. They don't really have a lot of options. There's not much they can do. It seems like as though with some exceptions, no one seems to really want the bears in their yard, but also no one in the state seems very motivated to support the services that keep them out by paying taxes. So there's clearly this disconnect, and New Hampshire itself, although a very beautiful, nice state, has run into some problems, and that is the story of the Free Town Project.
It seems that they shouldn't have to fund, any kind of service to get rid of the bears, because it should just magically happen due to this libertarian ideal. The bears will just magically go away, just like your dishes will get washed or whatever.
I think that the concept of the libertarian concept, the inherent problem is that they assume that they as human beings and libertarians need to continue to exist in this paradigm. It actually works. They'll just get eaten eventually. Like it works. It's just that the way it plays out in sort of like a war games computer scenario is that eventually the bears run you out and you're no longer there, and you go, well, this is the perfect libertarian like project. It showed exactly what's going to happen. Everything devolves, we disappear, and nature takes over, because that's ultimately the core of what libertarianism would create.
It's like, there are some countries where you could think of that might be kind of libertarianism, like, say, South Sudan or Haiti, where there is essentially no government.
Right.
And people just kind of coalesce into gangs.
Yeah.
And they just run around and kill their opponents.
Yeah, I mean it's
right?
Gangland,
Yeah.
L.A. years ago. It's
Detroit,
the Bronx
whatever.
in the 80s. It's Detroit. Yeah, it eventually turns into, and it's not what these people think. It's like you have to assume that everybody has the same sort of like has the same moral attitude that you do like, hey, you know, if my neighbor's snowed in, I'm going to go help them. And there's people who are like, if my neighbor's snowed in, I don't really care.
That's their problem. Why didn't they get a plow?
They should have gotten the plow. I bought a plow.
Right.
I'm not going to go help them. I want to spend fuel. I don't spend money.
They could pay me.
If they want to pay me.
Right, maybe.
Yeah.
If I feel like
I'll
it.
show up. And eventually it just, everything sort of tends to devolve. It's sad reality. I get it. Like I my heart aches for the libertarian concept, but the problem is human beings we suck.
Yeah, we kind of suck. So Mark, I had this blog about Detroit for a long time. I probably mentioned this before, but I would have people contact me and say, because I wasn't showing like the best parts of Detroit. You know, I was showing like the abandoned houses and the falling down, you know, infrastructure. And people would contact me and say, we should turn this into a libertarian utopia. And I said, well, you realize that there's no police in this part of the city.
Yeah.
Nobody's picking up the trash, and the water infrastructure is failing, and the sewers are failing. And they said, well, that's okay. We went around and around. I kind of played into this for a while, and I eventually just gave up because it was just like beating your head against the wall. But what they came up with was what I had mentioned earlier. They were going to pool their money together to pay for these services as a group. And I said, you realize that's what a government is.
Yeah.
You vote for the people to represent you to get this stuff done.
Yeah.
And you pay through your taxes.
Yeah. What you have created, what you as this, like, obviously to some degree affluent, probably white American group, mostly the people who are talking to you, are trying to do is actually turn this into a non-libertarian place.
You just want everybody to be like you.
It has no police services. There is no garbage pickup. There is no water services. Nobody comes if the house is on fire.
Right.
This is actually, nobody in this neighborhood is capable of or there to pay taxes. What you've created is a libertarian society. We created it and we dumped it on African-American people and poorer people to suffer. And then we point at it and go like, that's awful. But what we should be doing is the exact same thing, but living in really nice houses and not paying taxes. It's like this is an experiment that doesn't need to be tried. It was tried.
And it didn't work.
It's been tried over and over again. It was tried in Cabrini Green. It was tried in Detroit. It's been tried in the Bronx. You have already created these food wastelands, these wastelands, dumped other people than you in them, and criticized them on the nightly news in 60 Minutes by the fact that it didn't work out. Because again, nobody sweeps in to like build some great economy and some sort of like, head of industry like Elon was going to pull into the Bronx in 1982 and fix that and go like, hey, everyone here needs is like a solid infrastructure. They need to make money so they can support their community. Nobody does that. So it's been done. It's been done over and over again at the expense of other people, and people keep trying to do it because they've got the money.
At some point, everything was libertarianism.
Sure.
Societies formed post-libertarianism.
Right. Cavemen were libertarian.
Yeah.
I remember.
And then they smacked each other over the head with rocks and stole each other's food and stole each other's children or wives or whatever.
Yeah.
Got eaten by animals and then said, hey, maybe if we get together and we pay those 7 guys over there that are really strong and have big spears to protect us from the animals and go hunt for us, maybe that would work out better.
It's called Lord of the Flies.
Right.
I think it's called. If you haven't read it, give it a try. Yeah, just don't try. Just don't end up being Piggy in the story. Piggy.
Oh man, I know. Well, I've got some stories that are kind of like real life Lord of the Flies that I'm going to do one day.
Let's do it. Yeah.
But today I'm going to talk about the balloon guy.
And you're going to float above all. Kevin, you're going to lift us above all of this.
Yes, that's right.
Float above us, above all the nonsense and the noise.
There is maybe a little bit of libertarianism in this story at some point.
Right.
They didn't choose it. Well, kind of they did. So this is about Salomon August Andrée, and he is a Swedish engineer, physicist, aeronaut, and polar explorer.
Gosh.
He's kind of like Buckaroo Banzai.
I don't have anywhere near those credentials.
You remember Buckaroo Banzai, right?
Totally, yeah.
Neurosurgeon,
Someone
rock
of the
star,
universe. Yeah, he was like
time traveler,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, that's the one thing Solomon's missing.
That's right.
Time traveler.
He ends up leading an ill-fated balloon expedition, attempting to cross over the North Pole.
It's the best kind of balloon
Yes.
expedition, as far as I'm concerned.
Ill-fated, or
Yeah.
I mean, if it was successful, it might not be so interesting. It would not be on the show.
It's not sexy. Like, it's not like you took a ship, you got trapped, and you're floating in a balloon.
It certainly wouldn't be on our show.
There's nothing really, really cool about floating around in a balloon. I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't be cool. Actually, I shouldn't say. Except for the guy who's actually floating the balloon and enjoying the view.
Yes.
Other than that, really not that cool.
Not that cool. So he was born in, this is a long time ago. I mean, relatively speaking, 1854 in Grana, Sweden. Mm-hmm. I think that's how you pronounce it.
What's it spelled?
G-R-A with the two dots. Is that an umlaut?
Yeah.
N-N-A.
Ooh, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, his father died when he was 16. He was close to his mother. And 4 years later, he ends up graduating from the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm with a degree in mechanical engineering. Mm-hmm. So, he's pretty successful. So at 20, he's got a degree in mechanical engineering.
All right.
But his career starts off with a stint as a janitor.
That seems weird to me. He wouldn't have done better, but maybe he wasn't high society. Maybe he couldn't get himself position.
I mean, this could kind of be foretelling, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So he was a janitor at the Swedish Pavilion at the Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia in 1876.
He's in Philadelphia as a janitor.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the Swedish Exposition.
Okay.
A Swedish Pavilion at the Exposition.
They boated them over.
Yes.
They brought their own janitors.
Yeah.
Good people. Good, clean people.
They did not fly over in a balloon. But during his trip, he reads a book on trade winds, as one does, and he meets American balloonist John Wise.
Ooh.
I would like to read about John Wise. I'm not sure what he's famous for. Ballooning, apparently.
Apparently, yeah. I think it's
not balloon animals, I don't think.
Right, he's a balloon. He's a balloonist.
Yeah, right. Is that what they call it?
I don't know.
Balloonist?
Probably.
which begins his fascination with balloon travel.
All right.
Upon returning to Sweden, he opens and runs an unsuccessful machine shop until 1880. Also maybe a sign of things to come. So he starts his mechanical engineering career as a janitor, runs an unsuccessful machine shop.
Continues it as a failed machinist. Yeah, okay, gotcha.
The next 2 years, he's an assistant at the Royal Institute of Technology. So, kind of like schools like to do here. They say we have a 80% employment rate upon graduation. Whereas really 10% of those people are working back
in the field.
For the university
themselves.
Calling people to try and sell them on coming to the university. Nice. That's apparently what was going on with law schools during the recession, is they would hire their graduates to sell other prospective students on coming to get a law degree.
I am a graduate myself, as a matter of fact, and
That's
I am
right.
looking forward to my long career as
a graduate with a law degree and $180,000 in debt, I am making $12 an hour. Calling you.
They're giving me 10% break for every hour I work on my debt.
In 1882 and 1883, he becomes part of a Swedish expedition, a scientific expedition to Spitsbergen, which is like Svalbard. I think that's kind of far north, Norway. It's fairly, back then, probably really.
You can imagine. Yeah. Like, there's nothing there now, and there couldn't have been anything there then. And it would have been, well, tell me what season they went in. But either way, it would have been cool.
Yeah, I don't know the season. But it
was
led
to go there in the dead of winter and just be like, there was zero there.
Well, there's probably no light, right? I mean, isn't that like Arctic Circle area?
Yeah, no light.
It's led by Niels Ekholm. Important because he'll come up later in the story, where he studied, quote, air electricity. I cannot find anything about air electricity, Mark. I think it's one of those things that maybe people thought
that it was a thing. Like they'd see like the northern lights and they'd think this must be electricity in the air. Yeah. We can get this. We can, sort of
harness this or something.
Can harness this, sure.
I could find nothing about it. It also sounds like there was some mapping done on the trip of this, northern Norway or Sweden, I should say.
They kind of run into each other there at the top, I think.
Yes, Svalbard is Norway, not Sweden. From 1885 on, he works for the Swedish Patent Office, and he was a member of the Stockholm City Council from 1891 to 1894. Starting to see a little more success here. He's in the Patent Office, which, who else?
Einstein.
Yes.
The Patent Office. Yeah.
Perhaps that's where I should work next, Mark.
Maybe that's your next one. That's your career in your next life.
My pathway to success. His scientific career included published articles in scientific journals on topics such as air electricity, conduction of heat, and inventions. I would think I could find an article about air electricity if he published articles about it, but I could not find anything.
Maybe they went down with the balloon.
Yeah. The problem is Google's algorithm surfaces other things. There's air and there's electricity.
Oh, right.
And it's probably like, on the 1,275th page.
You just got to keep, dedication.
Keep scrolling.
You're just not dedicated enough.
I was not dedicated enough.
You don't have the discipline.
No, I do not. He was an interesting guy, though. He was of the opinion that the only thing that mattered was natural sciences, and he had no interest in art or literature.
Huh. Okay.
So when I say interesting, I mean not interesting, right? Like he would be probably the worst person to sit next to at a dinner party, where he would talk about air electricity.
Unless you didn't wear shoes to the dinner party and had hadn't washed in a couple of days, and
you were one of those freeloaders that just came for the free food.
He sounds like somebody. I mean, that's a singularly focused person, and that's great. But he's not a romantic.
No, not very fun, right? Not a fun guy to hang out with.
The funnest guy you'd have ever had a dinner party with.
He was very much for technological and industrial progress, and he believed that the emancipation of women would come as a result. So I don't know why that was in the things I read. I kind of think that maybe that's showing that he didn't like to bother himself with those kinds of social and political things because they were just going to automatically happen. It's kind of like trickle down economics. We don't have to worry about the poor. We'll just cut taxes on the rich, and therefore the poor will be taken care of. That's kind of what I think this is.
It's back to the it'll work itself out
yes, exactly.
sort of concept.
Maybe he's a libertarian at heart.
And also it didn't affect him really, so what did he really care?
So,
if
yeah,
it did
right.
Or didn't, Well, I don't disagree with, women's rights, but I mean...
I'm not going to do anything about
it'll figure itself out.
Yeah. He came up with the idea of taking a hydrogen balloon from Svalbard across the Arctic Sea, passing over the North Pole and landing in either Alaska, Canada, or Russia.
It's a pretty widespread, but okay.
He did apparently remark that maybe he would land in San Francisco.
Why not?
Just as kind of like, haha.
I think maybe he was thinking it would be cool to go to San Francisco. He wanted a free trip to San Francisco is what he wanted. Yeah, he wanted someone else to pay for his vacation.
Why not? In 1893, he purchased a balloon and completed 9 journeys practicing various techniques for his North Pole expedition. Ooh. So that's 1893.
I never think of ballooning as having technique. I'm sure it does, by the way. But I never think of that.
That's because you just haven't gotten it. You just don't know, Mark.
Kevin, your ballooning technique really needs some work.
Yes, I know. It's very poor technique.
Yeah, you're very poor ballooning. You're a good ballooner. Don't get me wrong. Your ballooning has been successful so far,
but my technique is pretty rough.
But your technique really needs some work. You really need to get your technique down.
Yeah, it's kind of ugly.
You're burning a lot of ballooning energy.
Yes.
When you could if you had a better
I could be more efficient.
You could be more efficient. Yeah.
Andrée was easily able to gain financial support for his proposed expedition.
Easily,
yeah.
Great.
Well, so I mean, there was like I don't know. He found an enthusiastic, reception in geographers and meteorologists at the 1895 meeting of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences.
I could see this actually, because there isn't like there's not air travel really yet, and people are trying to figure out what's next.
And there was a lot of unexplored places, and there was the race to the
Sure.
I can't even remember there was something like 1,000 people tried during a period of time to get to the North Pole. 751 of them died.
Nice.
75% death rate.
Mm-hmm. I think also there was a very major interest in backing of the sciences.
Yes.
At the time. So yes.
Yeah, they were feeling quite enlightened. So he seems quite confident, despite his lack of expertise. I mean, he's bought a balloon and he's flown it 9 times, but he's not really an expert in either ballooning or the Arctic.
We've come across this before, haven't we, Kevin? The fact that there are people out there who somehow manage to get funding for things that they barely know how to do.
Yeah, there's a few of those people around. It's quite amazing.
Backers.
Yes. Well, let me tell you some of his backers.
It's kind of like the concept of like Silicon Valley, right?
Kind of. This is a startup.
Yeah, it's a startup.
He found some venture capital.
It's early startup.
Yeah.
Yep.
He sold some shares.
Yep.
These are founder shares.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the people he got to fly with him in the balloon obviously get the non-founder shares. So if it's not successful, their shares are worth nothing, but the founders get made whole.
I wonder what Crunchbase would have made of this.
Right.
We should Google that. What Crunchbase thinks of these. We should do a Crunchbase for like former.
And Andrea's in Horowitz or whatever his name is. We should ask him his opinion on this. Would he have founded it or funded it?
I think so. I think I think we'd be. He's the guy that got 150 million.
Well, when he listens to this episode, he'll let us know in the comments.
In fact, we're gonna launch our own balloon expedition for anyone who's interested in financing it.
Yes.
So just we'll keep you posted, but we want to derail the story here.
I mean, helium balloons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
with
which
string.
Apparently it's a great idea.
Yes, with string, and you take them to parties, and you give them to little kids.
That's right. Yeah,
and they cry when they blow away. Let's see. So he had convinced them. He assured the audience that the summer weather in the Arctic is, quote, uniquely suitable for ballooning.
Uniquely suitable. Well worded.
Yes, well worded. Ultimately, he was financed by the likes of King Oscar II and Alfred Nobel.
Nobel?
Yeah.
I've heard that name before.
Yeah, I think it has to do with some prize these days. A small prize.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of money behind that Nobel
I have a feeling
prize.
That this was not a winner. This didn't make the list.
Yeah, I think there's a list of like winners and then absolute failures, maybe.
The Nobel Prize, the Nobel Prize, like the Razzies.
Yes,
for Nobel prizes.
It's like the golden toilet seat or whatever it is.
Yeah, that would have been like Elizabeth Holmes would have gotten the Nobel Prize Razzie for having not accomplished any of the things you said and going to jail instead. Oh, maybe we should start that.
He would get one too, except he wasn't there to accept it. It was viewed as, quote, brave and patriotic. See, so this is the thing. This kind of reminds me of the whole Darien scheme, right? Mm-hmm. People were so excited about the prospect of their country. Like, we can do this. He can do it. And he'll do it for me. I don't have to risk my life, but let's get behind it.
We get all excited about this. Like, Hitler wanted to have the first, global TV signal sent out when he announced whenever the Olympics, whatever it was, whatever he did his speech. Getting to the moon first. Everyone wants to be first.
Yes.
As though that's like a thing, It's still a thing. And we teach our kids that first, we're basically teaching the world constantly that second place is the first loser, which is not really very fair.
And when you look at, speaking of startups, Bill Gates and Microsoft were not first.
No.
In fact, they took other people's things.
They bought IBM's, right.
And just changed it, how it was done, and made more money.
Yeah, and I'm not really entirely sure what TikTok is, but I think it's a lot like YouTube, except just different algorithm to feed you crap a different way. And Instagram.
You should really get on TikTok, Mark.
Should I?
Yes, TikTok.
It's about time.
TikTok.
I've been been on my bucket list.
It's going to get banned.
Yeah,
Because, unlike the American companies, they are taking all your information. Oh, wait. That is dang. Yeah.
And they're not selling it to, and Instagram's not selling your stuff to China as it is. So.
They're selling it to whoever wants it.
Yeah, they're selling it to Cambridge Analytics, who is selling it to everybody else.
The Swedes did not have the capabilities to make such a balloon, so he purchased one from France, some big famous balloon maker. The diameter of the balloon, once inflated, was 20.5 meters. So that's big. It's like 70 feet or something,
big.
Right?
Wow, that's really big.
Initially, he claimed the balloon could stay afloat for 900 days, but he quickly revised that figure down to 30. It's almost 900.
It was in the variance that it was in the
plus or minus
870.
He named it Urin or Urnin. I don't know. The Eagle.
The Eagle.
Yes. He also never took it for a test flight.
Smart.
But he was going to fly it across the Arctic.
Well, he's only flown 9 times. I wouldn't make my 10th one the test flight. I mean, might bang this thing up.
Well, I mean, his 10th will be the test.
That's right. The hard part is the landing. You don't want to bang it up on the landing. Once you get off the ground, this thing will float. It's optimal conditions.
It will fly for at least 30 days.
Optimal conditions across the pole. So as soon as I get off the ground, who cares if I don't want to crash it on the test run.
I mean, once I'm done with this, we'll probably start ballooning vacations across the Arctic.
Gosh, yeah, you're gonna be
because it's optimal conditions.
You're gonna be like Club Med Martinique balloon trip.
Who wouldn't want to do this?
Yeah, you get like 4 or 5 people on it.
And once you hear this, Mark, you'll want to do it too.
It's economically completely sound. We're going to send 4 or 5 people, maybe a small family, on a balloon trip. They're going to go to Disney World.
I would recommend, Mark, that you start transcribing this, because this could pretty much just go in the brochure to sell this service, trip.
I want to think about the commercialization of ballooning in the sense of like tourism travel and what an airport would look like.
Yes. I mean, and on one end, there's the Hindenburg. And on the other end, there's this.
Yeah.
So it's bookended by 2 really exciting,
magnificent moments in history.
The first attempt was made in 1896. So it's 3 years later. Now he's finally...
He's owned this balloon for 3 years and he hasn't touched it.
Yeah, he hasn't flown it. It's just been sitting in some storage place. He's going to go... So he's got Nils Elkholm, the guy who led that other expedition he went on, and Nils Strindberg, a student and photographer, on board. So they're like going to go. Unfortunately, the balloon leaks hydrogen through all of the approximately 8 million needle holes.
Now, I'm going to just point out the fact that this was made by a country that's lost every war it's ever. I mean, it's not a winning country. I love France, by the way, but it's not a winning country. What do? They can make a car? No, that's the Italians.
They can make a baguette.
They can ride a bike.
Cheese.
Ride the hell out of a bike.
Yeah. Wine.
They can all the kind of really cool stuff.
Right.
So this isn't cool. So the French, I don't know if you're gonna go with it with the French. They can ride a bike and they can make great coffee.
They try things like gluing on strips of silk or whatever it is over the holes. It's not working. Plus, the wind is blowing in the wrong direction, and the men, while technologically capable, are unprepared for what they might encounter. And the leaking is so bad that the balloon is losing so much hydrogen that they estimate it will only stay aloft for at most 17 days.
So this is like sending a boat onto the ocean with
holes in it.
10,000 holes in it.
Yeah. And you're like, it probably can get across the Atlantic. Well, halfway at least. Okay, maybe it gets out of the harbor.
And keeping in mind the fact that once they reach altitude, they're going to slowly drift downward, which is going to be thicker air and they're not going to travel as fast. They're not going to get into like whatever the stream is up.
If only they could get up there. Let's see.
If only they could get up there. Yeah.
Well, so Alcombe tells Andrée that he's not taking part unless he gets a better balloon constructed. Mm-hmm. Apparently that doesn't happen because he drops out.
Yeah.
He gets replaced, for the next one, which it is in 1897. So a year later, the winds are more favorable, and Alcombe is replaced by Knut Frankel. Frankel? It's like that A and E combined.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Frankel.
I don't know how that's
so they get underway on July 11th, 1897.
Mm-hmm.
On board, the forms of communication with the outside world are buoys, which apparently they just like drop things and be hey, we were here.
Like lower it. Yeah, sure.
I guess.
Why not?
And homing pigeons.
Wow.
So they take a bunch of birds with them, apparently. But, right from the get-go, things are a little rocky. Immediately upon lifting off, it's been in this hangar in Svalbard.
Made of like cow skin, or it's rotting.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so it lifts off, and then immediately the wind blows it straight into the side of the hangar.
Perfect.
So it crashes into the hangar, and then drags up the side of the hangar till it clears it.
Nice.
So they didn't think to start on the the leeward side? Nice. Right.
So they know a lot about wind, is what you're saying, and wind direction.
That book about trade winds, he read that a long time ago.
How about you lick your finger and you hold it up in the air? I did. I mean, like a 7-year-old could.
I was a golf caddy. We had to do that all the time.
You know what's going to happen here, though? Is this going to blow? Are we going to blow into the hangar? We should just push it out further into the field. How about that? We'll get over the hangar.
And shortly after it clears the hangar, and it immediately starts dropping towards the beach. The ropes, which it has this ingenious system, Mark, of steering the balloon, which is 3 huge ropes that weigh hundreds of pounds each.
Oh my God.
1,160 pounds, I believe, is what the ropes weigh, each one. So they have like 3,000 pounds of rope that are going to drag. So they're only going to fly high enough that the ropes will drag on the ground, and they'll be able to like lift a rope a little, to steer the balloon that way.
What if they go over stuff? Okay, I'm not going to ask.
Like a tree,
and what if the ropes get soaked in water and then get heavier?
I mean, what if the ropes get pulled off the balloon?
That's true too. They just go in circles.
Yeah.
Parliament, Big Ben. Look, kids, Big Ben, Parliament.
And so, the balloon, because of the ropes, it's got so much drag. The balloon starts dropping. It's headed for the water. It drags so low that the basket goes into the water.
Excellent. Gets wet.
Right.
Nice.
So in an attempt to avoid capsizing, they dump 440 pounds of sand. So they dump a bunch of their ballast to lift off. Well, at the same time, 2 of these 1,000-pound ropes fall off because they got stuck. So now
in trees,
they've lost like 2,500, 2,600 pounds. The balloon shoots up. So now the other rope is now no longer dragging. They are now, it climbs to 700 meters. And while they were dragging along the sand, they could have bailed out, but they're thinking that at this point he's kind of like, I got to do it. And there was a lot of talk about why he even continued with this when his his first balloon mate bails.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
it's
obvious.
Like, doing.
Yeah, the guy who's like, yeah, this is ridiculous. And apparently, in the years that it took for this to even happen, people really don't care that much anymore. But they think he feels that he can't back out now. It's that whole throwing good money after bad, the whole sunk cost fallacy. He's like, I got to do it or I'm a loser. Yeah. Right.
How am I going to dig myself? How am I going to get out of this?
I got all this money, and was he going to pay it back?
Sweden's a small place.
He probably spent it all on blow and hookers. I mean,
totally.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, on pickled hair, mustard covered pickled herring and
and
and Knickerbrod. he was. All I can think of is, I'm sorry. I've spent some time in Sweden. I'm thinking of like I'm thinking of all of the foods. His bounty.
They had like cold dry fish and hard bread and cheese.
Oh yeah, and schnapps, and
Oh, I like schnapps.
I like a good schnapps. Yeah.
Well, so when it climbs that high, though, it increases the pressure, and so the balloon leaks even faster.
And it's getting cold, right?
Yeah.
Does that happen?
But
to them?
now it's dropping faster now.
Oh, God.
But at that altitude, there's also stronger winds, and they encounter a storm. So this is like
optimal conditions.
They have not gone very far, but they're heading away from where they launched from, and the people there are just kind of like, yeah, huh? I don't know.
They've left.
Yeah, they've left. Let's go home now. Let's go eat our pickled herring.
We're gonna wait for a homing pigeon to land on and tell us what's going on.
So at this point, the flight is completely undirected. They have no way to control it whatsoever. The balloon travels for an estimated 51 to 65 hours.
Is this longer than the Vasa floated in the harbor of Stockholm before it flipped over? I think it is. I think
that
he
might
did better.
Yeah, he
did the Vasa.
Yeah.
Another Swedish disaster.
Sweden has come a long way. I love Sweden.
I love Sweden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've just kind of given up on this nonsense, right?
Like, you know what? Let's just go make electronic music.
Right.
Let's go make cool, like, indie electronic music. I don't know.
Drink some schnapps. Have some. Are they the ones who do the Heige thing? The whole that winter thing where they just like get together and drink alcohol and sit by a fire.
It's pretty much Sweden's excuse for everything.
They figured out what to do.
Yeah, they did.
You don't need to get in a balloon and go across the Arctic.
You can stay right in the ground and just drink some schnapps by a fire with some flesk roasting on a ironclad pan. So
one report states that they think the balloon only flew for 10 hours, and the remainder was the basket bouncing and dragging along the ground, which would be 41 to 55 hours of bouncing along the ground.
What is that? How does that work on like one of those sort of like, athletic tracker watches? Like, how does that work on a...
And so right.
Is that on the Apple like watch, or like how much time did you run? Did you swim? Did you blow or Strava? How much time did you bob along the ground?
It's like, man, he ran for 65 straight hours. Totally, this man is the Iron Man.
He's the Iron Man. Yeah.
So in his journal, Andrée notes that nobody got any sleep during the flight. Surprisingly, right?
Yeah. How about during the drag?
Right, during the
even less sleep while
we're not sure how much was flight and how much was bounce along the ground.
I would nod off for like 1.2 seconds at a time before we hit the ground again and then bounce back up.
I wonder if anybody thought to like get out. But because there was 3 of them in this basket, and it's on its side, right, being dragged, or maybe it's upright, who knows? But it can't be fun.
Hey, you know what, guys? Like, I'm just gonna get out.
You guys have fun.
You know, it's this peer pressure. Right. It's like, I want to get out, but they're not gonna get out. I want to be the one that gets out.
Yeah.
If one of them gets out, I'll get out.
I'll get out.
But I don't want to be the first one. They're gonna all call me the first get out guy, but I'll never live it down.
The official objective of the expedition is to map the area with aerial photography. That did not happen. However, Strindberg did manage to take around 200 photographs once they managed to make a semi-controlled crash landing on the ice. They had only gone 295 miles. I think the total flight was like over 1,000. So
I mean, they made it to like whatever 700 and something feet, and then or meters.
Yeah, 700 meters. So a couple thousand feet, 3,000 feet maybe.
Literally, they just drifted downward.
Yeah,
and just by mistake they went 200 and that's how far you would go with the winds at that point. They did nothing.
They must have thought at some point. It was probably shortly into this trip that he was thinking this was a bad idea. I should have backed out. Mm-hmm. They had 3 sledges, a boat, and supplies for 3 months. They also had stashes in northern Svalbard and Franz Josef Land. So, but those are like, they've gone, I believe, past those things.
Sure, okay.
A week after crashing, So they hang out there for a while, like apparently figuring out what to do. They head east towards Franz Josef Land before realizing after a week of walking up to 10 hours a day that they have not traveled anywhere because the ice is flowing in the opposite direction.
They're on walking up an escalator in the wrong direction.
That's what I put.
This is going to be great.
They were walking on a figurative treadmill.
They're literally walking, it's like going the wrong direction on one of those like flat escalators at the airport. Oh, I'm going to get to my gate any minute now.
I'm surprised they didn't kill Andrée at this point, right?
Oh, yeah.
You had us walking for 10 hours a day? Going anywhere?
But wait, you guys had, please explain this to us. You had 2 months and 3 weeks left of food, and yet you still killed and ate one of the members, and you know what I mean? Why do you explain that? Well, let's start from the beginning.
And I mean, at least they burned a lot of calories, ate a lot of food, and wasted a lot of time.
They could have just stayed home and done that.
That's right. That whole sitting in front of the fireplace with some schnapps.
Yeah, that'd have been nice.
They then headed towards Seven Islands, which I believe was south. Dragging their sledges behind. They had plenty of food and they shot seals. They're shooting walruses, polar bears, whatever. For fun. They just left the carcasses there. They didn't eat them.
They took a picture of it.
They're like, gross. Who wants to deal with that?
Ew, gosh.
They had to leave a lot of equipment because they couldn't carry all of this stuff. They could only take, they had to kind of like winnow down what they had to what they could carry on the sledges. It was 100 and something pounds apiece.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have 3 months of food anymore. They left a bunch behind. And what they brought was apparently maybe not always the right thing for what they needed. They had only wool coats, trousers, and oilskins. They had no warm furs. And due to the fact that it's like everything is half frozen, there's a lot of slushy water. They are, and it's humid and foggy. They are either wearing wet clothing or trying to dry wet clothing.
Wool.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to at the time to some degree, but geez, furs would have definitely been nicer.
Been the way to go. The going was slow, and it's rough and craggy. Eventually in September. So this was what they started in July. Now it's September. So they've been out there a while. They decide they're not getting off the ice. So they just set up shelter there on the ice. But eventually it starts to break up. And it starts to break up kind of like under their shelter. Because the ice sheet is colliding with, it's called White Island.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Victoria.
Pushing up against it, yeah. Uh-huh.
The only option they figure is to get off the ice and onto the island. So it takes a couple of days of shuttling their supplies onto the island, which, you're like, hey, you're on an island. There's going to be animals. This is good, right? It's early October now, and they've been on the ice for over 2 months. Unfortunately, it doesn't get better. It gets worse. Besides Strindberg's photographs, the men keep diaries. And once on the island, the last few pages of Andrée's diary become incoherent.
Oh, yeah. He's hungry. He's losing it.
Yes, things are not going well. It's believed that all 3 are dead within a few days.
Making it to the island?
Yes. Strindberg is believed to have gone first as he's buried under the rocks. Andrée and Frankel are found in their tent. Now, the big question is, what did they die from? They weren't found until August of 1930.
Oh, wow.
So, what is that, 33 years or something like that? The remains were found by a Norwegian expedition, and the remains are returned to Stockholm on October 5th, 1930. And a grand homecoming is held, Mark.
Oh, I love these.
This is kind of like the Burke and Wills expedition,
this is great.
Right?
You got to celebrate these people.
The men received funerals with honors, and King Gustav V spoke. Mm-hmm. No one knows the cause of death, but there are several theories, including trichinosis from undercooked polar bear meat, vitamin A poisoning from polar bear liver, lead poisoning from the food storage cans, scurvy, botulism, drowning for Strindberg, and carbon monoxide poisoning for Andrée and Frankel. Though I've even heard that it's because of the remains were, pretty decomposed at that point, that it could have been a polar bear attack, or one of them could have been shot too.
I'm going to go with broken heart, Kevin.
Broken heart, yeah.
I'm going with broken heart. Yeah.
I'm going there too. Also, one of the things I read or listened to said there was morphine found. So they're thinking it's possible.
This ain't happening.
No.
I mean, they'd been there long. I mean, there was no getting out of this. There's no rescue balloon coming to save them.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the 1960s, Andrée's status as a national hero begins to become a bit questioned.
Really? The Australians don't have a problem with theirs. With Burke Willis. I mean, they're still
There's
heroes.
Probably a whole celebration.
Yeah, I don't question this.
We have Cinco de Mayo and St. Patrick's Day. They have Burke and Willis Day.
Come on,
The expedition was bound to fail. Andrée refused to hear any questions about the expedition's feasibility. He also had very little actual flight experience and none with large balloons, and certainly had no experience in the Arctic.
I refuse to hear his name besmirched in this room, Kevin.
I know. I mean,
I refuse to hear...
Unlike you, Mark, I think he might have been a manipulator of national emotions.
No, I think
at the time, and he has brought about needless deaths to his two companions through his stubbornness.
One man's manipulator of national emotions is another man's national hero. I mean,
that's right. It's another man's president.
Tomato. I mean, it's.
He couldn't, people just decided that he couldn't back out because of the national excitement and the pride and the funding he received. And it was Nobel and
where was he going to go?
Right.
Sweden was small back then.
Right.
He wouldn't have been able to show his face at a I don't know, a reindeer race.
He could take a balloon to the Arctic.
Maybe he was intended to, it's a suicide attempt all the way. They got that stuff. You hear that stuff now, like the pilot did this or whatever. I mean, you're like, he planned it from the beginning.
We would hear about Inuit or those kinds of cultures where they get on an ice floe when it's their time to go and just float away. Maybe that was his thing.
Had he posted any social media around the time that would have suggested where his mind was?
He had some things where he hated his compatriots. So
his compatriots. Yeah. He wanted to get rid of Newt.
Right,
Knut. He couldn't stand Canute.
Now Nilsson, unfortunately he couldn't get rid of him.
No, that was his first one. Yeah. But he had a chip on his shoulder for anyone with a N or Kn in the beginning of their name. What did Nilsson go on to do? Nilsson was that's like the Burke Willis thing where the guy bailed, and I don't remember the name, but the guy bailed. He's like, I'm out of this. You're ridiculous,
right? Yeah.
I mean, how do you you're walking around the world for the rest of your life going in the told you so sort of category.
I think he won a MacArthur Genius Grant.
I'm batting 1,000 in the I told you so. He
won a MacArthur Genius Grant for that one.
Yeah.
They were like, this guy is obviously a genius.
He's obviously a genius. So the Swedes started to question. They started to go wait a minute, why are we celebrating this guy?
I don't know where it stands now, but that's the end of my story. I want
to go to Sweden and find out. I want to ask a man on the street thing,
And I really want to get this balloon, the startup balloon thing going. I want to get it off the ground.
Your own personal startup balloon
thing?
Yeah,
the one we were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah,
we need some funding for that.
Get some funding for that, yeah. Anyone who's listening, we need just a couple, I don't know, million?
Right, yeah, $1 million, I would say.
Low.
How many million does it take for us to get a balloon and then take that balloon to another country where they can't get their money back?
Well, and pay ourselves a few $1 million each for the trouble and the work.
Some place that doesn't have,
I figure about $10 million.
Yeah. That'll do it. Yeah, $10 million. It's an expensive balloon.
Well, I'd like to get about 4.9 out of it, and and then we got expenses.
I might even need more than that because I think I might want to up it from a balloon to a blimp.
Well, I was thinking about below the balloon instead of a blimp blimp's a good idea. So it could be blimp or balloon. I'm not gonna go there. You can decide that part, right. But maybe we maybe instead of a basket, because it's kind of open air, and so we like a Tesla, maybe. I don't know, a nice car. I don't know, something like that hanging from our balloon.
Yeah,
our blimp.
I would like maybe a big gas guzzler like an F-250. we can roll coal while we're going.
We need a bigger balloon.
Yeah.
I think we're going to need a bigger balloon.
A blimp.
Which is a blimp.
Right. Well, that's been fun, Mark. We should do this again.
Sometime before we die.
Right.
Let's do it next week.
Yay.
This is Help Is Not on the Way with Mark Dustin.
Kevin Bauman.